Good afternoon, all the students present for this session, and welcome to the last block of the course MMPH 002 Human Resource Development. We are going to discuss Unit 11, which holds the topic of emerging trends and perspectives. So, students, as of now, we have understood the concept of human resource development. We have understood how this human resource development helps in developing the level of competences within the employees of the organization, the development of the commitment level of the employees in the organization, and overall, as a part of the organizational development, we need to foster the organization's culture, which stands as one of the building blocks of implementation of HRD initiatives in the organization. So in continuation with that, this last block of our study that focuses on the implementation of HRD in the organization. So for how this human resource development can be fitted into the system of the organization so that the goals of the organization, the objectives of the organization can be achieved. That is what that is being focused in the last block of the course. So to start with, we need to understand how this human resource development can be fitted into, or what are the aspects of the human resource development that can be taken into consideration, assuming the present day scenario. So for that, what we need to understand is the basic aspects of the business and the basic dimensions in which these organizations do operate at the present scenario. So let us go to understand the basic characteristics of the business nowadays. Whenever we do talk of the present day's business scenario, we say one of the most important aspects of the business is change, the perspectives of change. We say that nothing is constant in the world. Everything is changing. So does the business perspectives do change. Unless and until this change is being adopted by the business organizations, the business organizations are not going to sustain. We can check. Now, the Fortune 500 list, maybe 2 decades ago, in the Fortune 500 list at the present day, we can observe that more than 60% companies have not been enlisted now, which were there earlier. What could be the reasons? The reasons are like they couldn't update themselves, they couldn't adapt to the changes that imposed or that are imposed on the organizations. As such, we can think of the best examples are like Nokia, we can think of, or even in India, we can think of Hindustan Motors, like the car ambassador, right? So there's a saying, today's golden ones can be tomorrow's urgent ones. So if the organizations will not upgrade themselves on a continuous basis, if the organizations will not update themselves as per the requirement, as per the influence that the external factors do have on the organization, the organizations cannot sustain at the present time. So the only thing that the organizations are driven by is a continuous change process, a constant change process. They need to upgrade themselves from time to time. Otherwise, it will not take much of time when they will lose their existences. And in the past, we have seen many such examples. So this is what that each and every organization need to understand, that they are being subjected to a continuous change process. What is required for that? A continuous learning process, a process by which organizations can update themselves, can upgrade themselves, and can survive. Otherwise, very difficult for them to survive. The second aspect that we need to take into consideration is the opening up of economies around the globe. The opening up of economies around the globe. So gone are the days when these organizations were competing only with the local players. Now, because of this liberalization policy, the organizations are competing with global giants. So, what makes these organizations to survive is the competition. Now, the consumers do have choices with them, unlike earlier days. They were only, confining themselves with the local products, or even with the protectionist approach of the government of India. Earlier, when we used to have Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, FERA 1972, right? So, lot of taxes, duties are imposed on the imported products so that they will be at par with the prices of the local products, local made products, right? So that was an approach that the government of India was having and was implemented through RBI to protect the local artisans, local entrepreneurs. But with the new economic policy adopted in the year 1992 and subsequently this Foreign Exchange Regulation Act was converted to Foreign Exchange Management Act, and all such kind of hurdles were removed. So now we can see many such foreign companies, they have started their operations in India. So that gives a threat to the local entrepreneurs to compete with them. So that is where the business organizations do have a threat of survival. When I do say that because of this globalization, foreign players do come and operate in a local territory, at the same time, we do have the opportunity of going beyond the local territory to the foreign territories. That's why it has been mentioned as that business nowadays, they do have a vast canvas of operation. They do have a vast canvas of operation. The entire world is a market for the organizations. Right? So the organizations can go beyond their domestic territory to have their operations in any of those foreign territories, right? Where this liberalization policies are being considered, right? So in that case, what will happen? Of course, we need to the process of transformation from a local organization to a global organization doesn't happen all at a sudden, right? Organizations need to go for the internationalization processes, multinationalization processes, transnationalization processes, and the global processes, right? So international processes we are talking of, here we can think of the basic process that we need to take into consideration is during these phases of being internationalization or transnationalization or global, right? The requirement of human resources will be different. We have to deal with the parent country nationals. Parent country is the country where the organization has been established. Or we have to deal with the host country nationals. Host country is a country where the organization has started its subsidiary, new branch, right? Or maybe excluding this parent country and the host country, there may be other countries which is referred as the third countries, right? So whenever we are dealing with different nationalities, one of the important aspects that we have already discussed during this HRD process is we have to deal with the diversities of that particular employees. Diversities of the employees, right? So that is what that makes the organizations more challenging. So how can we deal with different cultures? How can we establish different cultures at different subsidiaries? Guided by the parent organization's culture, at the national level. We need to talk of that. At the same time, when we operate at different localities, right, we have to deal with the rules, regulations, policies, plans, guidelines of the government of those localities, those countries where we do have operations. And there is a significant amount of differences in terms of the rules, regulations as imposed by government of different countries itself. How to cope with that? The kind of enactments that we do have in India to deal with laborers may not be the same as in case of a country like UK or USA or in Arabian countries. So how to deal with that? So those are the challenges that are there with the business organizations at the present time. Beyond that, organizations need to be more dynamic nowadays, in a sense that they do have the challenge of not only retaining their consumers, but also need to expand their consumer base. That's what we need to understand. Right? Consumers are the key entities of any business. Consumers are the key entities of any business, right? So what we need to do is to take those consumers' requirements into account and come out with any such kind of products or services to be delivered to those consumers as per the requirement itself. And that is what that makes the organizations to diversify their products and services. Diversification has not been a choice for the organizations nowadays. It has been a mandate. Right? Say, when we talk of horizontal diversification, the basic objective is to provide new and new products and services with different kind of features altogether to the existing customers. This is a kind of diversification which is done to retain the existing customer base, because customers do have choices being different at different times, right? So to meet to the requirements of the customers, you can think of adding more and more product line. When we do talk of a particular brand like a bathing soap brand like Lux, you can say more than 30-40 different varieties of Lux, may it be in terms of the pricing, may it be in terms of the weight, right? May it be in terms of the smell, may it be in terms of the say or a requirement. So that is what the requirement is. You need to have more and more product line just to meet the requirements of the organization. Organizations need to go for diversification. You can think of concentric diversification. Concentric diversification says your objective is to retain customer base. At the same time, you need to add more and more customer base to the existing product line or service line. So for that, what is required? You need to add similar sort of product line or service line to your existing products and services. Say, for example, Sony Entertainment Limited, taking over Columbia Pictures, purchasing Columbia Pictures, right? So there was a diversification from small screen segment to a large screen segment. Objective is to retain existing customer base, at the same time add new customer base. So adding to the basic line of the organization. We can think of conglomerate diversification, the highest level of diversification, where our objective is both, right? To retain as well as to add. So by adding a wide range of products and services to our existing product and services. The best is a brand like Tata. Starting from a common household product like Tata Salt to the protectonics, diamonds, what not is available under a brand like Tata. That is what we say now. You'll not find a single household in India where you don't see a particular product of Tata. So that's the highest level of diversification that you need to have. So whenever we do talk of the present day's business, it's all about the products and services that you do provide to the consumers as per the requirement of the consumers. Gone are the days when you used to have a marketing concept like produce anything that can be sold. But today it's a wrong motion. You cannot produce anything. You have to produce that what is required by the consumers only. That's what we need to talk of. So all of these things lead to the highest level of competition among the organizations. Competition for survival. So there is a mad rush among all those organizations to survive. So we say that organizations nowadays, they do dance with the tunes of Darwin's theory, Charles Darwin's concept of survival of the fittest. So what are the basic aspects of the organization? You need to have that competitive advantage. You need to compete with the rest of the organizations around the globe with whatever the strategies you do have, and you survive. Otherwise, you don't have a place in the market. So unless and until the organizations come out with some sort of strategic, innovations, it will be very difficult for them to survive. Of course, we have understood that the human resources do play a very important role in the process. Managing the human resources in a different way altogether can really help the individuals to, can really manage the individuals to come out with all of their requirements, right? So here what is required is to understand the business perspectives, and then we need to think of coming out with some sort of strategic initiatives of their own, right? Second, we need to talk of the basic environment in which these business organizations do operate nowadays. We said that the system concept is applicable on the organization. System concept is organizations are like open dynamic systems. Open systems. It's not like an isolated system or a closed system. Open system says organizations are consistently influenced by those external stakeholders, external environmental factors, right? External environmental factors, like we do talk of all those pestle factors, political, economical, like here it has been mentioned. So we need to think of the basic economic environment, which do have a significant impact on the organizations, right? We're talking of the kind of economic policy being undertaken by a particular country. We're talking of the inflation rate. We are talking of the focus of the economic development initiatives. We are talking of the role of the government bank, like we do talk of RBI, to regulate the monetary policies, to regulate the overall economic activities. So whenever we do talk of the organizations, it cannot go beyond the economic sanctions being imposed in that particular country. We have to operate within that. That is what we need to take into consideration. We do talk of the government or the political environment, right? Whenever we do talk of government and political environment, the importance is that a stable government facilitates in promoting industrial activities, organizational activities, right? So first of all, we need to talk of the stability of the country's political environment, because we understand that different political parties do have different sort of ideologies of their own. Maybe when we do talk of the foreign countries like UK or USA, where there is bi-party system, right? So maybe the Labour Party or the Democratic Party, whatever it may be. So they are driven by their own philosophies, own ideologies. So the rules, regulations, or the sanctions imposed in a particular country is based on the philosophy of that political party. But if we do talk of a country like India, where we do have multi-party system, so each and every political party do have their own ideologies. What is required is to cope with all of those ideologies during the change of government itself. Right? So instability in the government or the operation of government will lead to instability in the organizations also, leading towards economic disturbances. So that's what we need to take into consideration, right? We are talking of the basic legal environment in which we operate. In a true sense, if we to talk of the meaning of liberalization, we say that it's all about removing the hurdles of carrying out the business in any country. And we say that India is a liberalized economy. But can we exactly say that our economy is liberalized? Can we exactly say that the rules, regulations being imposed on those foreign subsidiaries to have their operations in India are liberalized in true sense? No. We do have plenty of such enactments. What we need to have to carry out our business. If we were to talk of the labor legislations itself, there are plenty of such legislations. What do you need to ensure in your organization? And the problem is that maybe these legislations at times do have different sort of implications. As if the reason for which we have gone for standardizing those, the labor code, right? We have come out with the wage codes. The definition of wage has been differently prescribed in the Factories Act, in the Industrial Dispute Act, in the Minimum Wages Act, in the Payment of Wages Act, or maybe in the ESI Act or EPF Act. It has to be standardized, all of those things, right? Beyond that, to have our operations, we need to take clearances from many such other departments based on the legal entities, right? Maybe Environmental Pollution Act is there, right? Forest Act is there. So sometimes, the implications of these acts do not lead the organizations to have their free operations. So maybe a constant. But what I'm telling is that if I do talk of having my business, I need to take this legal environment into account, and I have to abide by all those enactments being imposed in the organization by any such country. That's what we need to take into consideration. We're talking of sociocultural environment. Sociocultural environment says, what is the attitude of the citizens of a particular society towards their society, right? We're talking of the strong implications of the culture in that particular society. So when I do talk of the basic perspectives of the people in a particular society, first of all, societal culture, as we have already discussed, all those dimensions, right? Octopus dimensions we do say, which is applied on organizations, are also driven from the society, societal culture. So is the societal culture is open-ended or closed-ended? Is the societal culture is past-oriented, present-oriented, future-oriented? Is the societal culture, time perspectives we have said, is the societal culture is more fatalistic in characters or scientific in characters? So all those things. It's all about the attitude of the people towards the society, towards the different aspects of the society itself. Right? So if they do have the positive aspects of the society, and there is a bonding which leads to a positive work culture, right, in the society itself, then definitely that will be a boom to the business organizations. What we need to understand, right? So that is what we need to talk of. We are talking of the demographic environment. We have already understood that demographic environment in that demographic cycle itself, right? Where we say that people belonging to different cultures, traditions, habits, fooding habits, clothing habits, etc., they come and work at the same workplace. And in the demographic wheel, we have seen that there are differences in terms of the people within themselves. There are differences in terms of the people, in terms of interpersonal relationships. There are differences in terms of the people on the basis of the position they do have. There are differences in the, among the people itself on the basis of the culture to which they do belong to. But as a HRD manager, I need to take all of those, demographic differences into account to develop a unique organization's culture to manage the entire thing, right? So different people, like particularly with the opening up of this global economies, and the way we come out with the development of infrastructure, particularly roads and transportation facilities. So nowadays people don't have a constant of operating anywhere in the world, and that has been facilitated with this science and technical environment itself. Maybe production system, if I do talk of, right? So gone are the days when you used to have it in a manual way. Small scale production units were there, right? And then with the invention of those steam engines and all those things, small scale industries were converted to large scale manufacturing processes. We have thought of applying automation process. So computers, after their innovations, right, they were implemented in the manufacturing process. And the process is still in a phase of transformation where we talked of the nanotechnologies being implemented, or maybe the present technology of robotics, whatever it may be. So if I'll not update myself in terms of those new initiations, new developments happening, so I'll be lacking back. Because that particular role of ICT, information and communication technology, is highly significant at the present time. So that has traditionally changed the concept of the definition itself, isn't it? We come out with the definition of organizations as a place where people do work. But nowadays we have to talk of virtual organizations, and that is possible because of this ICT. Right? We are having a laptop, internet connection with us. We are connected to the rest of the world. So going to the office, working there from 10 to 5 is not a mandate for the employees nowadays. You can stay anywhere and can work, can contribute to the organizational growth and development. And what I need to do is to understand all those changes and need to incorporate those changes in the organization only. So basic environment of the business is characterized with all of those things, right? we're talking of in a simpler sense, we do talk of all those external factors do have a impact on the business processes. What to talk of external factors? We do talk of somehow the internal aspects of the organization, organizational related factors we do talk of, right? And when we do talk of the organizational related factors, we broadly classify it into two such categories. One is this, the internal environment of the organization and the external environment of the organization, right? And when we do talk of this internal environment, one of the significant aspects of the organization is the promoter's values itself. The basic vision, the basic purpose of the organization is defined through the promoter's values. So may it be promoting CSR, corporate social responsibilities, or may it be promoting the shareholders' values, whatever it may be. But the promoter's philosophy is what that guides the organization to accomplish its objectives, goals. Right? The entire philosophy of the organization is driven by that only. Beyond that, we have to talk of the vision, mission of the organization. What is the growth ratio that the organization would like to have? Where it would like to reach, or in its journey of destination, right? What is the end goal? What we call it as a visionary state of existence. So these are the things that influences the members of the organization. This is a vision, and mission is important in a sense. It provides a direction to the employees. When the efforts made by the employees are not made in a particular direction, then perhaps achieving the organizational objectives will not be possible. So what we need to do is to align them, and vision, mission statements help them to achieve. So each and every member of the organization must understand and associate himself with the vision. That's what we have understood in our previous sessions, like how this vision statement of the organization are decentralized to the individual employees at the bottom level through the appraisal processes, right? And to understand that, we're talking of the basic management structure. What sort of operations we do have, and how do we carry out all of those operations, right? Whether it is a bureaucratic organizational structure, taller one, or it is a flat organizational structure with lower level of hierarchies. What is required? Most of the time, organizations nowadays, they do come out with their own innovations when they accommodate all the people in terms of their organizational strategies. Like you're talking about pyramidal structure, inverted pyramidal structure, dome-shaped structure, maybe a highly flexible structure, what we call it as an amoebatic structure. So gone are the days when we used to have only line organizations, staff organizations, or matrix organizations. Nowadays we do have different sort of structures of the organization, and each and every structure has its own importance considering the particular situation. How do those organizations do operate? That matters. May it be a rigid one, but cannot survive them. So it has to be a flexible one, accommodating with all those external factors influencing the organization. To talk of that, we are talking of the power relationships that exist among the management and the employees of the organization. In industrial relation scenario, we have detailed discussion on that. It's all about the relationship between the management and their associations with the workers and their trade unions. Now, the power relationships are influenced by the societal power relationships. What is the philosophy in which all those employees and their organizations are driven? What is the philosophy in which the management is driven? Right? may it be autocratic or a democratic or a participative kind of thing or a benevolent kind of thing. What is the attitude of the management towards the workers that defines the power relationships? Does have an influencing aspect. Physical assets, facilities, of course, availability of the resources are another one important aspects, right? So considering the location of that particular organization, what sort of physical assets, physical facilities are being provided as the organizational resources is what that we need to take into consideration. Brand image. Beyond that, we need to talk of all those verticals contributing towards the organizational success. Like what is the availability of human resources for the organization? What are the qualities of the human resources? As we have understood previously, that different generations of the employees add different value systems. So what diversity I do have in terms of the human resources? I can think of that. Financial capabilities, financial strength of the organization, its technical capabilities, how sound is the organization in terms of technological advancements, adapting to new technical advancements, right? You're talking of marketing capabilities, production capabilities, all of those things do matter a lot whenever we do talk of considering the internal environment of the organization, right? We're talking of external environment, all those stakeholders of the organization who are not directly involved in the production process or service delivery process, they are external. Maybe we talk of customers, suppliers, competitors, the marketing intermediaries, the financials, public itself, all of them, they will come under the external, environmental aspects of the organization, making an influence on the organization. Because as we have already discussed, customers do have a significant impact in terms of the products and services of the organization, right? So organizations have to deal with the customer's requirement. Based on the customer's requirement, only these products and services are to be manufactured or to be delivered, right? When we do talk of the suppliers, more understanding we'll have it from here. When we do talk of this suppliers, okay, with the emerging complexities at the place of work itself, now just most of the processes are outsourced. The role of the vendors, the suppliers are more important over there, right? These customers and suppliers both do have their bargaining power, right? So that's what we need to understand. Competitors we have understood, right? Detail of that particularly we'll see that. And marketing intermediaries, okay, like the basic aspects through which we'll enter into the competition, right? The middleman, we talk. The financiers, the people who have invested money in the organization, they do have a significant influence over the organization. And at last, the public, because the organization, at last works for the public, for the growth and development of the society itself. So, understanding all of these aspects has made us to realize one thing, that if I do sum it up, like we're talking that the present days organizations, they are exposed to a high state of competition, right? So Michael Porter has identified 5 such important dimensions, 5 such important forces that influences the business organizations, right? These 5 are like the potential entrance to the business processes, right? As the new players, whoever are entering into the system, into the competition, right? We have understood that there are entry barriers, true, because of all those external factors, or complying with government and political policies, complying with the legal entity. So it's not that easy. But at the same time, all those new players who are entering into the you know, industry and who emerge as a competitor of mine, how to deal with that? So I always have a threat of those new competitors, right? Parallel to that, if I do see, there are threats in terms of my substitutes in the industry. I do have certain threats from the substitutes. Like I may have invested a hell lot of money in developing a particular product, and I may have the patent or copyright of that particular product, but it doesn't take much time to the competitors to come out with similar sort of products, right? So gone are the days when we used to have monopolies in the market. You cannot do that. So always there is a threat from those organizations who may come out with their product and service line, which can be a substitute to my product and service line. Maybe in terms of the price, maybe in terms of the features, maybe in terms of whatever it matters. But giving me lesser scope to come up with those kind of competitions, right? So always there is a threat of the substitutes in terms of the product and service lines, right? Beyond that, we do have these buyers and suppliers. Buyers and suppliers always do have one thing with them, that is their bargaining power, right? So if I have to talk of this, IPO model being imposed on the organizations, the basic aspects of an organization is to process only. The inputs are given by the suppliers, the output is being taken by the buyer, right? And these inputs and outputs are influenced with the bargaining power of the suppliers or the buyers. What to do with that? So that's the reason why there is a huge competition, right? And moreover, we will talk of rivalry, the competition that goes on among the organizations in the same industry, right? So the rivalry among the existing firms in the same industry-wise competition is what that the organizations need to overcome, right? So in a particular sense, if I do say that these organizations need to survive on a long run, they need to think of these 5 such important dimensions which leads to the competitive structure of the organization. You have to deal with all of those things. Right? So in these perspectives, if I do talk of the organizations, right, having that competitive advantage over other organizations, can they do that? Can they achieve that? If yes, what factors should be taken into consideration to achieve those kind of things, those kind of objectives? So we need to understand the basic aspects of the organizations in terms of dealing with all of those things. And somehow rather, we can conclude that it is the people of the organization who matters a lot. It is the human resources available in the organization what matters a lot, right? So whenever we talk of the basic challenges that the organizations do have in terms of achieving that competitive advantage, we may sum up with few such important challenges. There are many such other challenges are there, right? The first such challenge is leadership development. There's a worldwide notion whether we want managers in our organization or leaders in our organization. And all the organizations nowadays, they have realized and accepted that the role of leadership is inevitable in organization. The role of leader in an organization's success is inevitable. Anyhow, we need to have this leadership developed within the individuals. Objective is not to look into the basic dimensions of leadership, like the traditional leadership methods like autocratic, democratic, participative leaders. We are not talking of that anymore, right? We are talking of a leader who becomes a role model for other employees in the organization. So a path-setting leader, a goal-setting leader, a leader with transformational ideology, transformational leader who can dream, dare to take the organization to the next level. So the focus is on development of leadership. Lack of leadership is what that most of the organizations do suffer, because if they don't have that leadership, they will not be able to reach to their visionary state of existence. To talk of that, right? So lack of leadership places the organization downwards. What is required is to foster those leadership qualities within each and every employee of the organization. To talk of that, the basic aspects of leadership is to develop a sense of ownership, right? So if each and every employee of the organization can take the ownership, organization can have its competitive advantage. We need to talk of that. We have discussed that the present day is characterized as a VUCA world where the business perspectives are like volatile, nothing is constant. So it is there today, may not be there in tomorrow, right? So we cannot predict the future based on our past experiences. So it's a volatile. We do talk of uncertain environment because we are open, dynamic. Right? We don't know what external factors will influence the organizational practices and will, shape the business organizations, influence the business organizations, and will, again, allow the business organizations to adopt some different sort of strategies altogether. In the past, we have understood, we have seen the implications of like the economic recession. It happened all of a sudden because of some organizations. May it be the pandemic created by this COVID-19 virus, right? So entire organization operates in uncertainties. Your future is an uncertainty. So we have to see the entire world in a different mindset altogether. You cannot take that as simple as we used to have it in our previous days, right? We're talking of the processes being very complex nowadays. Complex in a sense. All those external factors, as we discussed now. So may it be political, may it be technological, may it be social, may it be legal, or may it be technology, like the government-related factors. So all those factors influencing the organization, and ultimately it has to come out with a very complex process of decision making, right? And we to talk of, right, the ambiguity that is there. Always there is a confusion. whether I'll go for option A or B or what to do. So there are multiple options. What I need to do is to understand each and every option available to me and then need to make an implication of that. That is why you need to consider that there are tremendous challenges being imposed on the organizations. Another dimension of the organization is how do the employees to cope with the organization's culture? The basic challenges, I do have employee diversity, right? The problem is individuals don't want to lose their personal identity to identify themselves with the name of the organization. That is the problem. And unless and until I create a strong bonding between the organization with the people, now the contribution made by the people will be the problem one. They will not contribute because as long as the mindset of the people will not be developed, right? Working in any kind of organization, if they don't have that mindset that this is my organization, they will not be committed. So it's developing the sense of ownership among the workers is one of the most important dimensions. And that can only be developed through a strong organization's culture. Can I make them like we have discussed this culture and HRD? We have understood that it's all about the people and their perspectives towards the organization. Right? How do the people perceive the organization in terms of different verticals, its rules, regulations, policy, plans, whatever it may be. So shaping the organization's culture, intuiting all the people in that particular culture is another more important dimension we're talking. We're talking of managing the talent at the present time is another one big challenge. Talent management stands on a tripod. Talent acquisition, talent management, and talent retention. I've already discussed it. That there is a war going on among the organizations. War going on among the organizations for having the people with right skill, knowledge, and abilities. Most importantly, as if we have understood, right attitude. And nowadays the organizations don't get the desired manpower. That is why if the employees do come out with their own competencies, they are being highlighted not by one but by many organizations. And that has led to the emergence of many such unethical practices such as poaching kind of thing. And to understand, let's say that it's better not to have a manpower than to have a wrong person on your board. That is why acquiring right kind of talent is the biggest challenge. Second, it will lead to the management of those talents in the organization. Making the best possible utilization of the resources available. Making the best possible utilization of the human beings. Right? I don't want, as if we have understood, if 65% of the total cost of production is because of the human resources, the highest amount of wastage that is being there in the organization is also because of improper utilization of human resources. So if I would like to have that competitive advantage where I need to focus on minimizing the cost and enhancing the quality, I need to think of managing the people. in an efficient and effective way altogether. Last but not least, we do talk of talent retention. The competition is so tough that getting the valuable employees in your organization has really been tough. And organizations, what they do is they, they cannot afford to lose their golden color employees, the valuable employees of the organization. By any means, you have to retain them. Sometimes we do come out with, retention cost is higher or recruitment cost is higher. Sometimes we do come out with this retention cost to be higher, but actually it's wrong. No, replacement cost is higher than the retention cost. So it's always better to retain the golden color employees of your organization. So whenever I do talk of this talent management, I do come out with this talent acquisition, talent management, and talent retention as the three important pillars for that. And towards the end, we nowadays are witnessing a complete new era of our operations. Digitalization of things. This has made us to realize or to overcome many such conventional, traditional practices. In our past, we have witnessed many such jobs which have been vanished. Many such jobs which are losing their relevance. And the same thing will happen in future also. We'll also witness a lot of changes in terms of the job profiles of the people. Right? Many such jobs will not be available in future. And everything is there because of the evolvement of technology, process of digitalization itself. Before pandemic, work from home was considered in a different view altogether. But after pandemic, it has been a mandate for many organizations. It has changed the attitude of the people towards the entire process. So here we will come out with the management of human resources. We come out with the management of human resources with such kind of challenges that makes us to focus on 6 such important dimensions of human resource development initiatives in the organizations. We're talking of job analysis, job design, training and development, organizational experiences, career development, performance management, and HRIS, human resource information system. These are the 6 such important dimensions which has made the organizations to focus. The HRD initiatives are completely based on that, as because we need to understand a significant amount of change happening around the globe in terms of the jobs, in terms of the duties, responsibilities associated with these jobs. So what is required is redefining the different perspectives of the job, right? So understanding the factors that comprises the job, and thereby we do come out with many such aspects like job enlargements, job enrichments, defining job profiles. All of those things are to be taken into consideration. We need to think of redesigning the jobs. Training and development has its own impact, and most of the organizations have relied on the training and developmental aspects to deal with all those kind of challenges. Organizational experiences, as if now we have discussed that In the past, organizations do learn from their experiences and use those experiences to take a future decision, but not at the present time. There has to be continuous learning processes. Your past experiences are invalid nowadays. So start from afresh, and considering the present scenario, your decisions are to be taken. Career development, performance management system, these are core aspects. Another one aspect that the organizations do focus is the HRIS. Because most of the organizational practices nowadays, they are data driven. And unless and until you do have a complete data for you available, your decisions cannot be perfect, right? So these are the different HRD functions that should be taken into consideration by the organizations, right? So let us end up over here, and for today's session, and tomorrow once again we'll meet to discuss the last unit of our course, where we'll see how these HRD initiatives are taken by different organizations around the globe. So thank you very much, and do join us tomorrow for the last session. Thank you. Have a good day.